Hey, this is Bill Storm here with you again for part 5 of my backstory. Sorry, don't have my tripod today, so apologize for the weird angle of the camera here. But anyway, I wanted to call this section of my backstory starting all over again and again and yet again. And you may have been at that place in your life, and that's where I was. This is about 1991. I was 21 years old at the time, still working at a martial arts school as the program director, which was a sales position. And I just knew that this wasn't going to be something that I was going to be able to grow with. I was working, morning, noon, and night, and the compensation wasn't good enough to justify it. And I just had this feeling that owning a school of my own wasn't going to be in the cards anywhere in the near future, so I needed to really start looking for something else. Well, one of my students, one of the kids, his dad was the principal at an investment firm in town, and we got along really, really well. And he approached me one day and he says, "Billy," says, "I think you'd really be great as a stockbroker. Why don't you come and work for me?" I had no idea what that was. I had done a little bit of reading, but, not too much on all that entailed. But I thought to myself, hey, you know what? I like him. This may be an opportunity for me. It sounded glamorous enough. I think I'm going to go for it. So again, I'm 21 years old at the time. And so I go down to the office, and he basically hands me a pile of books. I mean, a stack, books that were like this thick. And it's all rules and regulations and math and all these things. And he says, don't worry about it. He goes, just start reading this stuff, practice it, learn it. I'll tell you, it's tough. It's going to be really tough. You're just going to have to study hard. Well, what made things worse is some of the old timers that have been there a while at the firm, looked at the young gun coming in, and they're like, "Oh, kid, don't worry about it. You'll get it eventually." He goes, hardly anybody passes this thing on their first try. Most of us all failed, right? So I'm like, okay, great. Thanks for the, thanks for all the positive vibes here. Anyway, I put in a lot of work and study into it. And for whatever reason, I just understood it. I really did get it. And I took the exam and I passed it on the first try, which of course didn't win me any friends inside the inside the firm either. But what happened next was really, really weird, and I want to explain why this applies to owning your own business or running a business online, which relies heavily on you being able to promote yourself and your product or service. One of the first things that I was told was, "Billy, here's what I want you to do. I want you to call on the attorneys in town, and I want you to let them know that we have a block of KeyBank preferred stock with a fixed yield of 11%, right? And ask them if they would like to buy it." So I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know what that means, first of all. But second of all, how am I just going to call up an attorney in town and have them answer the phone? Okay, so my mother actually was a legal secretary, and she worked for a huge law firm in Houston, Texas. And I knew that she was basically the gatekeeper for the partners in her firm. And there was no way you were getting by her as a cold call to just call and solicit an attorney. So I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? So what I decided to do was I asked my mom, right? I basically asked my mother. I said, how would you maybe get through to some of these people? And she said, well, some of them come in really, really early, and if you call early enough, you may be able to catch them right before, the secretary comes in and takes the call. So, of course, that's what I decided to do. So I did make a phone call, and sure enough, one of the attorneys in town actually answered the phone. I couldn't believe it. I think it must have been like 7:30 in the morning or something like that. And I just kind of closed my eyes and just shut my mouth, and I just talked, and I just said, "Hey sir, this is Bill Storm from blah 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 company. The reason I'm calling is because the principal of our firm said we just got in a block of KeyBank preferred stock. It's got an 11% fixed return on it. Would you be interested?" That was my whole pitch. That's what I said. And there was kind of this silence there for a second. And all of a sudden he said to me, he said, "It's a 11% fixed return and it's KeyBank." I said, "Yes, it is." He says, "Yes, I would be interested. Where are you located?" So I told him I'm down in the Atrium building, right? And he said, "I'll come down at lunchtime." So of course I get off the phone, and I'm thinking to myself, there is no way this guy's coming down here. He's never even met me before. But sure enough, He shows up, never met the guy before in my entire life. I'm 21 years old. This is my very first sale that I ever made. He comes in and he buys $40,000, which at 21 years old might as well have been $4 million. He spent $40,000 and bought, some of this KeyBank preferred stock with a fixed yield. And that was a huge, 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 huge lesson for me. And I said to myself, I will never, ever again prejudge what someone wants or what they need, or whether or not I should pick up that phone and make that call or not, because you just never know. And that continued to happen over and over and over and over again in my life. Now, did that work out for me long term? No. It just wasn't something that I really, really wanted to do, but I did well enough that I was actually able, I was there a couple of years, and I was actually able to buy my very, very first property, my first townhome, at the age of 23 years old. And that was a huge, huge, major accomplishment for me, big, big win. So how does this apply? Well, if you're going to start an online business, okay, first of all, you should do something that you are extremely passionate about and excited about. But more than anything is you have to be willing to put in the work. You have to be willing to roll up your sleeves. You have to be willing to do some things that are sometimes a little bit outside of your comfort zone. But what happens is sometimes when you go a little bit outside of your comfort zone and you just follow what you're asked to do, right? You don't think too hard about it. You just kind of close your eyes and do it. A lot of times you'll find that success is right there. It's like literally right around the corner. All you have to do is just be willing and open to do something that's just a little bit uncomfortable. So that was just kind of a fun story I wanted to share. I'll get into part 6. I don't want to make this video super long, but I'll get into part 6 and I'll kind of keep going on where life went from there. But hopefully that was helpful to you, and we'll see you on see you in the next episode for, what is it, part 6.